This is something that I don't do often, folks, or especially film, and that's compost. Making your own compost. And simply the reason is because I've just got too much area for me to actually make my own compost, and you know, we also have a bulk supply of that available. But look, there are many of you out there who've got small garden beds, you know, just a standard house residential size block, and everything that comes out of your garden should be able to go back into your garden. Now, we don't compost in these small piles. We put them out in large stockpiles there, or we let it decompose and use it as a mulch at the end of the day, or sometimes we even burn it if we've got too many twigs, and we take the wood ash out of that and utilise that back into the garden. So it's a great way of putting the potash back into the soil as well. But for the small areas or gardens who've got compost, who would like to make compost, these are 3 beds that I've got, and you don't necessarily need to build a frame, and it's, you know, it's frustrating, it's expensive, and it does need maintenance, and this one's falling apart, and admittedly it's got to be pulled apart because where it's situated here, earlier days when I was actively practicing it, for whatever the reason, just to get at least some good compost and trial it, these trees will all benefit from underneath. So all their roots start to push through, and even some grasses get into this area here. So long term, I'm going to scrape it, but come and have a look at this. Yes, eggshells, ignore that. That is my family ignoring instructions. Sometimes I do it too. But what we've got in here is just hundreds of carrots. These are taken off like there's no tomorrow. Let me just see if I can pull one up and show you. I don't want to snap at them. Oh, there's one there. I've actually pulled one up earlier. It was twice the size. I don't know what I've done with it. I think I just threw it away. These are small. But we've got hundreds of them in here now, folks. Now, these are going to grow long and straight. That's what I've noticed, because self-germinated carrots will always outperform the ones you buy from your stores. And half the time with those, the carrots, if they're left in the punnet for too long, no doubt you've seen it, they're growing down like that, then they're at 90 degree at the bottom, and there's no way you're ever going to get them to grow straight again, no matter what you do. You can try and plant them on an angle and all things like that, but carrots, when they self-germinate, or if you seed your own, it's the best way to get them going, and make sure your soil's not too rich. Now, this being a compost pile here, all I've been throwing in here are just leftover bags, food scraps, and what you should do is activate it as well. So use our biostimulants, use the black grit. Don't be scared to put it down. And I think I've mentioned this before, either in your garden, which is ideal, and obviously in your compost where you're already adding the calcium silicate and the superfood. I know it sounds crazy, but that will activate it. It will get it flying, and you'll have it populating a lot quicker. Don't mind me, I don't practice that as much as I'd love you guys to. And it's important that you do that too, because you don't need to take heaps of compost at any one time to dress your garden bed with. You only need to sieve through it And look, if it's a fine grade already, you don't have to sieve it, but it's a good thing that you do. You'll get some chunky bits in there as well, but to avoid all that sort of chunky stuff that you want to do as a top dress, because you only need a couple of handfuls per square metre. As I said to you about the superfood and the black grit, when you feed your garden, that's the soil. You do the same when you've got a compost, so that you get another array of microbial activity that's going on in here that's going to benefit your garden. So handfuls of this around the garden bed every month or two, sieve it through so you can get the large pieces out, so that the remaining part, the fine stuff, goes straight into the garden, and a good watering in. Now, if you haven't turned your compost over for a long time, like me, you pull out the little auger, the garden auger. Now put it on slow. That's slow. Don't put it on fast, because it's just going to rip your arms off. Slow. Put a side handle on the cordless drill and just drill in and bring the bottom up. See that? Look, see how dry it is at the bottom? So I've got to get the water down there. It's important to turn the compost over because you want it to activate, you want it to break down the compost pile, the proposed compost. Let's get this right. We're putting scraps into here from the kitchen. You're putting carbon like dried leaf matter, straw if you like, twigs, even soil, even old bags. I've got an old bag here. Now, this is a bag that I had sitting in the garden forever and a day. It's a bag of, ironically, compost, but it's dehydrated. So throw all this in here, or any other stuff you have. If you don't need it in your garden, don't keep it in storage. Either put it in your garden or add it into your compost bin or start creating one. To activate it, you need to get this all working. You don't want it dehydrating, because when this was beautifully nice and moist, now it's dehydrated because it's been sitting around for too long, you get all these beautiful cookies. This is what you want to create. You want to create the humus in there so the moisture stays in the ground. I've got beds that are consistently moist and other ones that are consistently dry because the humus isn't building in that, and I've got to work on that. And it's a trial for me to see what it takes and how long it can take. Sometimes I'm actively working on them, other times and most times I'm not. And the results are disappointing because the moisture's not there. And as soon as the moisture dissipates and it dries out, the life in the soil, or wherever it is, will dehydrate as well and start to deplete. So make sure you hydrate every time. And if you get the humus developing by doing good quality compost, and look, there's 1,000 videos on how to make compost, carbon, the lasagna layer, the lasagna effect, turning it over, the tumblers, the list goes on. Key factor here is whatever you add into it, it's got to be as a small particle size. So whether it's eggshells, don't throw them in like that. Crush them up, put them in a dehydrator if you like, or in the oven, or sorry, in the grill. Dry them out, crush them, pulverise them, then sprinkle them into the garden. Even with your food, if you can chop them up into small bits, because think about it, you got composting creatures. The bigger it is, the more likelihood you get some bad ones coming in there as well, like a pumpkin. Now I've got a pumpkin that's rotting out in the garden. That's decomposing pretty quickly, but it needs to have some dryness in it because it's getting a little bit sour, a bit moist. So the smaller the piece, the quicker it breaks down, and the composting creatures can digest it a lot quicker. And that way you're turning compost on a lot quicker as well. So don't let it dry out. And if it's too wet, add some straw or some carbon, like mulch if you have, or even sawdust, or even just soil, or even your old bags of, yes, potty mix, good, bad and ugly. Chuck them all in here. Don't forget to add your black grit and your superfood, which are on special, and get it into your garden or your compost. Spring's around the corner, folks. It's warming up. And here's another thing about making compost, folks. It's coming out of your gardens, coming out of your kitchen. And when you're using products like black grit and superfood to add into it, you don't have to add it again into your veggie garden, because if you're adding it into your compost, you're going to save a lot of money, because you're getting a couple of handfuls of this to become, half a metre, a cubic metre of it eventually. By the time you go through even a third of that bucket, you'd be lucky. But that cubic metre that you create is going to cover a vast area and multiple applications to your garden. So you're saving big bucks. We're dropping the price. We're teaching you how to make your own and expand it so that you have a long-term goal in being able to feed your garden that with things that come out of your garden with a couple of extra nutrients that we've created for you. Or otherwise, if you haven't got a compost and you don't want to make one, yes, of course, apply it straight into your garden. Small handfuls per square metre every month is all you need to do. Our website's up and running, folks. Our stores are out as well. So you're out and about around Red Hill, Dandenong, Berwick, Keilor. Thebarton's open in about a week and a half, 2 weeks from today. And Lethbridge is obviously by appointment. Go down to see the outlets that are open and shop in there in store, or collect your items, because I can tell you now, Mary Anthony at Dandenong, at least, I know she's got over 100 orders sitting there still to be collected from you guys. She's run out of space. It's a backyard, front yard, so get down there before she goes crazy. And I think they've got some traffic control going on there too in those residential streets. Vasili'sGarden.com, everything heavily discounted. The superfood especially. Grab some before we put the price back up. From me, Vasili, Maresi.